Hi everyone, welcome to our fireside chat. Thank you IxDD for the opportunity for us to be able to host this chat and having this event itself. We are totally inspired by the different speakers, and I hope that our topic on Southeast Asia, a perspective on inclusive design, would be able to inspire others as well. I'd like to take this time to introduce myself. My name is Vicky. I'm a product strategist and product manager from 62, and I'm joined together here with Isan. Isan, would you like to introduce yourself?
So I'm Ihsan, as product designer from 62, and currently heavily involved in building this report for access inclusivity and accessibility in Southeast Asia.
Yeah, cool stuff. And a little bit about 62. We are a digital product design team and we are focused on product innovation. We are committed to creating highly relevant and well designed products and worked with a variety of clients ranging from Grab, World Bank, Nokia, World Resource Institute, just to name a few. And throughout the pandemic, our team realized that over time we have an itch to think beyond our scope and to get a bird's eye view when approaching projects. Therefore, we developed a new initiative called Project Lima, as Isan mentioned before, as an experimental playground and a community and a space for us to ask critical questions in the realm of topics that we are passionate about. Now, a little bit about Project Lima. As I mentioned before, it is an initiative by 62, and we aim to find innovative solutions to some of the world's most pressing issues. We try to challenge ourselves to go beyond the convention by utilizing research and also design as a principle to prototype and develop meaningful products or services. So it's a great opportunity for us to be able to share the second report in Project Lima, which is on the topic of inclusive and accessible design, and hoping that it would also tie in very closely with this year's theme for IxDD, which is solidarity and transformation. As we delve deeper into the topic, I want to also ask Isan about how his involvement was and why do you think us as a team or us as Project Lima raised this topic?
So I think right now we are at the point where more diverse people adopting the technology. Pandemic has also accelerated the needs for technology adoption because
Yes.
majority of conventional business, education, and local community need to keep running and
Mm,
connected within the lockdown situation. And also due to the exponential increase in digital adoption, the role of product design becoming more complex. The more the adoption, the more chance our solution is going to be used by diverse people. This diversity requires specific consideration to cater the disabilities, understanding the situational condition,
yeah,
environment, behavior,
yeah, yeah.
culture, and even mental impact. The umbrella
Right,
term
right.
to this aspect is known as inclusive design.
Mm,
And even most of the cases right now in product development, I think accessibility and inclusivity is still an afterthought. But we
mm,
see the wave moving slowly to the point where inclusivity become more important and will be a default process on the early stage of product development. We also thought the inclusivity will be beneficial and sustaining the company, product, and the team for the long run.
right.
We feel with these measures, it can help transform Southeast Asia into a society built upon solidarity, more inclusive, and bringing independence and identity toward its users. So I think that's the reason why we raised this
Mm-hmm.
topic.
Yeah, really cool stuff. I think that is true. As designers, we are pressured to be able to do everything, to design for everybody. But then obviously there are different things, like all humans are not made the same, which actually is quite a challenge, but I think it's a very good challenge as well, right? So I guess like in the process of creating this report, what were the things that you went through? What was the design process like?
The process kind of basic, you know. For the first step, we try to identify the problem scope. What is the interesting thing about the topic? Who are the people
Yeah,
we need to connect with? And what
right.
are the data points that we need? And so on and on. Then we noticed
Mm,
that this
mhm.
is a very broad topic, definitely. So we decided to limit the scope to focus only on Southeast Asia perspective.
Ah, I
And
see. Yep,
then
yep,
we started doing desk research right away. What's already out there, what's the current state, and in parallel, we also spread some questionnaire to some people, and we also had some chats with our partner, Somia, our research partner, and we have
yep.
also Suarize. They focus on enabling digital industry for disabled people,
Right.
and we
Cool
have
stuff.
Anotasi. They focus on spreading social knowledge in easy to digest way. After we
Mm,
collect a lot of raw data that touch a wide range of areas, we decided to shape this data to a standalone web report. There are two main insights on our report
mhm.
from global and Southeast Asia view.
Really cool stuff. Yeah, I mean, like, I think the design process, when I was involved in it too, like you mentioned, it involved a lot of people. It involved communities like experts, right? Like Swarais or Anatasi, or research partners like Somia, which are really valuable to us. But we also touched on the questionnaire, which we had to kind of sift through and understand what was it like in Southeast Asia and what was it like globally as well. I guess from the desk research and in a global perspective, what were the highlights of inclusivity from a global view?
Okay, I think back then I was confused with the terms of accessibility and inclusivity.
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah, yeah,
after
yeah.
looking at some resources, it turns out accessibility is a part of inclusivity, and there are a lot of aspects of
Right.
inclusivity. The other aspects are culture, language, age, education, connectivity, location, morphology, gender, neurodiversity, and more.
Yeah, that's a
And
lot.
for the accessibility isn't just limited to permanent disability.
Mm-hmm.
There are
Mm-hmm.
also temporary and situational disability.
Right.
For example, Spotify car mode is one of features for situational disability because technically when we drive we can
Yeah.
disable to operate the normal version of the app.
Yeah. Yeah.
Next, I think there are standard compliance for accessible website and can be extended to
Oh.
other digital product. It called the WCAG, stand for Web Content Accessibility Guideline. And on the government level,
Oh.
there are national law for people to comply with accessibility regulation, like American with Disability
Mm-hmm.
Action from US. On more personal perspective, on our personal devices, most of its operating system right now have built-in features for accessibility. Going
Right.
to
Yeah.
entertainment
Yeah.
industry, some of big players have moved to more inclusive approach, like Xbox controller. They made an adaptive controller for disabled people.
Ooh,
On
cool.
workspace, some companies have their own D&I department to help build more diverse and inclusive design team. Their perception toward this can also be seen from their trend of inclusive imagery for both digital and non-digital product. So I think that's
Mm.
some insight that we've got on global perspective.
Yeah, that's really cool stuff. And I think a lot of the examples that you mentioned are leading companies. They're big companies who actually play a big part in our lives. Like, for example, Xbox. They have an adaptive controller for disabled people, right? So that's super cool. And I think it's good that they are starting this movement, that they are continuing to think about design for inclusivity and accessibility as kind of their approach. I guess like now we're kind of going in deeper into Southeast Asia. What were kind of the different states of inclusivity that you observed or the team observed in Southeast Asia, and what were the striking things about it?
Yeah, I think first, Southeast Asia is one of the most challenging markets, and designing for inclusivity
Yeah,
is even
totally.
more difficult due to the unique and diverse demographic, culture,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
behavior. And
Mm,
accessibility is still very much neglected in Southeast Asia.
mm,
Some of issues are quite fundamental and just can be solved by multi-way of action from each individual, community, regional, larger institution to the government. And
mm.
speaking of accessibility, disabled are still at high risk of being left behind in
Oh,
the development process. For
yeah, yeah.
example, in Indonesia, disabled individuals have lower educational attainment, worse
Oh,
health,
yeah.
and fewer economic opportunities, and also less access to public
Yeah.
services. The majority
Mm,
of disabled individuals in Indonesia do not use assistive device such as hearing aids, walking aids, and other supporting tools. I think it's
right.
because most of facilities are mainly designed for non-disabled individuals. And one
Mm,
of the interesting insight we found beyond accessibility, the inclusive challenge in Southeast Asia is more on the contextual aspect like culture, language, religion, socioeconomy, and infrastructure.
yeah, yeah. That's super interesting. And I think that is true. A lot of the designs or the infrastructures that are in Southeast Asia are not designed for non-disabled people. I mean, like I walk outside and the pavement is like broken. I mean, sometimes I wonder if I can walk through that and feel safe. But that was interesting. I think like what you mentioned about how inclusive design in Southeast Asia is not mainly on disability only, but also on cultural and like language aspects. Could you share a bit of more about like how what does that influence our designs or design product designers?
Yeah, I think we can start from the cultural aspect.
Yeah.
In Southeast Asia is relatively different from Western countries or Western region based on
Yeah.
some researchers data that we've got on decision making. Southeast Asians prefer a top-down approach, meaning that
Ah.
those with higher position or authority are usually the ones making decisions.
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
also, Southeast Asians tend to have low individual index, meaning that we as more important than I, and
Right.
individuals are expected to conform to the ideal of society to which they belong.
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
some of example solution related to these cases might be Genius. Genius is an Indonesian digital bank. Even though their services are mostly digital, they still provide some kind of physical booths all over their
Mm,
coverage area. The reason
right.
might be most Indonesians won't be using a product if they don't meet the physical representative, and they still need a real person to onboard them.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And related to the banking case, we also have another Indonesian bank, BRI, Bank Rakyat
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Indonesia. They initiated a proactive approach by providing some kind of bank truck for people who live in rural areas. So people who live there can have equal access to the banking as well.
Right, right.
And that's from the cultural aspect. Other aspect, language. Southeast Asia are highly complex and are rooted in some major language families. As far as I
Mm,
remember, there
yeah.
are 100 to thousands language in total.
It's a lot.
So
It's a lot, yeah.
one a good example related to these cases might be Gojek, I think. Gojek
Mm-hmm.
is known for their hyperlocal approach, even though Indonesia, Vietnam and Thailand have very distinct languages, but since they have similar culture profiles, Gojek applied a similar kind of communication style that I think that works for most of them.
Mm, yeah, really cool stuff. I think on the cultural aspect, when you mentioned that, people still want to meet a person face to face, I think that's like so true because like my mom also prefers that I walk through or I install apps on her phone. And not to mention that there are still rural communities, like apart from Jakarta, there's always like these smaller cities that are probably unreachable and they probably have a different digital literacy than we do in the city, right? So I think that's a very important aspect to consider. And moving on to language, especially like like my parents speak different languages all the time. I can't keep up, and I know that like there's different accents as well too. Other than that, were there any other aspects that you think are valuable or are unique to Southeast Asia?
Yeah, we have another aspect that is socio-economic aspect. In this case,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
most of Southeast Asians are still struggling to afford and get access to full experiences due to the cost of ownership limitation. For
Ah,
example,
right.
some of people would buy a new SIM card bundled
Mm-hmm.
with the quota rather than
Yeah.
pay cellular plan regularly
Mm-hmm.
because it's simply cheaper.
Ah,
And
yeah.
even though we've considered accessibility, culture, connectivity, and others, our product might not reach diverse people enough if they can afford it.
That's true. Yeah.
So, for the example solution related to this case, we have Spotify again. In Indonesia, they has a clever idea by providing some kind of daily subscription plan. They kind of try
Mm.
to adapt with Indonesian habit, which is katengan. I don't know
Ah, yeah.
what it's called in English.
I'm not sure either.
Yeah, I think
Yeah, yeah.
that's for the socioeconomic aspect.
Right,
And
right, right,
also
right.
we have religion aspect. In Southeast Asia country, they put a lot of emphasis on religious beliefs on their day-to-day activity. For example,
Yeah.
conventional banking are not regarded as good faith. According to Muslim
Oh,
teaching, taking and giving interest is considered as a sin.
what? Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah,
Wow. Yeah.
for a good solution or example for these cases, I think there's a lot of or most of e-commerce product in Indonesia provides some kind of Muslim corner with products or services that follow Islamic norm and rules.
Cool.
For example, they
Yeah, yeah,
providing
yeah.
some Shari investment features, halal product, and daily paying schedule.
Mm. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And the last thing on design in general, digital product in Southeast Asia, on most cases, they put a lot of additional context or description to each component or features. I think it's
Right.
because most of Indonesian, Southeast Asian, they are still new to
Mm.
technology or digital product.
Mm-hmm,
So I
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
think
mm-hmm.
from that, inclusive action for Southeast Asia not just limited to interface. It can be some kind of communication style, how we communicate to specific kind of group people
Yeah, yeah.
from different region, different language, different communication style, and also it can be some kind of tweaking on the pricing system or some kind of tweaking also on operational procedure or providing their local culture need. Yeah, I think that's
Got it.
some of insight that we've got on Southeast Asia perspective.
Really good stuff. I think, wow, there was a lot of things that you unpacked there. I think starting from uh,
Yep.
the socioeconomic value, the community of Southeast Asia itself, the religion, language. I think those are things that I think in the beginning of the report we never really considered, but it kind of grew as we developed the report. I like how you pulled out a few of the examples there, and I think those are very valuable to take as reference when we do build inclusive products in Southeast Asia. I guess my question would be next on what do you think designers would do to make Southeast Asia a more inclusive and accessible society?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of way that we can do to make our product more inclusive. First, I think we need to be able to perceive accessibility and inclusivity as the driver of innovations. That's
Wow.
actually what's really happened on most of tech development, like
Mm-hmm.
the voice assistant, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Initially, it was designed for users who can interact with the interface, and from that, some of companies extend the utilization and the benefit to wide range of people. So that's why we have Siri now, Alexa, and Google
Yes,
Assistant.
yes.
And also from the workplace context, we can bring diversity to our workplace and team. The more diverse the team, the higher chance of the team build or produce inclusive product or feature. For the company side or group side, like companies, institution, and government should balance the focus on growth with inclusive mindset that would give individuals some space to consider inclusivity aspect upfront.
Mm.
Also, as individual, we should have an inclusive mindset as well. Means that consider all of the inclusive aspect upfront on our daily basis while we designing. Yeah, I think that's my point. And last thing is, if there is no initiative yet, or the company doesn't see accessibility and inclusivity as an important aspect, we can start small by implementing some basic accessibility on our day-to-day design process. We can convince our close circle and make some allies
Mm.
and start convince the stakeholders with any method or strategy that you think would work for them. Yeah.
Yeah, really good stuff. I think like by hearing what you're saying right now, it seems like there's no way inclusive should be done alone. It definitely needs a bigger team, a group, even involvement of government to be able to make sure that this does happen. And as individuals, it's again like you said, it's important for us to also be considerate of all the inclusive aspects upfront. I think are there any more additional notes or thoughts that you wanted to share with us before I kind of close the chat?
Yeah, I have some, I think. I think inclusivity has a correlation with sustainability of the
Mm,
product.
right.
It also can solidify the society who uses inclusive products.
Mm,
If you're looking for some long life companies, they usually design their product as universal as possible
right.
to cover all diverse users' needs.
Hmm.
We are aware that we are just scratching the surface and there are a lot of points that we didn't cover yet on this report. So actually we intentionally open this report for everyone. For any feedbacks, share some insight or collaborate together.
Yeah, cool
Yeah.
stuff. Thank you for sharing all that input. And I think like I hope that everybody here who just kind of watched and viewed our chat, our talk, would be able to be inspired to see and how we can push inclusivity and accessibility as something of a need, something essential for us to move forward. And I like what Isan just mentioned about how inclusivity is quite tied in with the sustainability of the product. It does definitely have a longer term aspect instead of something that is only feature based, right? Like something that is quite limited to that time only. If you're interested to learn more about inclusivity and diversity, check us out on online. We do have our report online and available for everybody. And like what Isan mentioned, we are open for feedback and we are also open for any collaborations that you might have for us. We want to keep it as an open discussion. we do feel that we are continuously learning throughout this experience, and I hope you have a great day ahead. Thank you.